Okay guys, so we're going to do a gear loadout video on my latest bike packing trip that I took in the mountains of West Virginia. This is the bike I took with me and how I packed it up, and we're going to go over everything, talk about what I liked, what I didn't like, what I'm going to change next time, and what I'm going to keep. So here we go. Okay, so this is the bike I took with me. It's the only bike I have. I don't have a hardtail. I know a lot of bike packers like hardtails because you can fit more gear inside the frame. Also with a hardtail, you get a little more power to the wheels on some of the flatter sections. However, I was in the mountains of West Virginia, so there's a lot of really rocky terrain out there. So the full suspension bike actually fit that trail very well, although a lot of guys still do a hardtail on that trail. But this is the bike I have, and it's the bike I decided to use. I wasn't going to buy a hardtail specific just for that trip. So this is a Diamondback Atroz comp, 2016 version, I believe. It's a couple years old, but still holds up pretty well. Did have a small problem with the bike out there on the trail. I did blow out my rear shock. I don't know if it's seal busted or whatever, but I have since replaced that. So let's go over the bike and what I took with me. Let's talk about the helmet first. I did take a mountain bike specific helmet, a little more coverage in the back of the head. I was by myself as a solo trip. I do have a road helmet that I usually use when I'm doing any kind of more mellow trails, but I decided to get this helmet, just a little more protection while I'm out there. And I did mount a GoPro mount or an action cam mount to the top just so I could get some extra footage with my little action cam. I'll show you in a little bit. So let's put this aside. Next was my shoes. I did pick up some flat pedal shoes. I usually just wear old tennis shoes on a mountain bike, but I decided to pick up a pair of actual mountain bike flat pedal shoes. And I tell you, world of difference. I had no idea that would make a big difference in just how my feet felt. Usually when I'm doing really hard trails in regular crappy shoes or just old tennis shoes, my feet would get sore. They would just fatigue pretty quickly. These shoes are a lot more stiff in the sole area and where the pedal would hit. Just a lot more structure to it, and I tell you, it was a lifesaver. These are the 510 free rider versions. Wife actually bought these for me. Love these shoes. Never going back to regular tennis shoes. I did mount my phone on the handlebars just so I could check my GPS occasionally. I could check the map, see where I'm going. So that's just a standard mount. I'm not sure what that is, but it held up pretty well. I did mount a Sony action cam to the front. I also had a chest mount that I wore, so I could switch it back and forth between the handlebar mount, the chest mount, and a helmet mount. I don't care for the mounts that I use. These are cheap plastic mounts. I'm going to upgrade to some metal mounts, so there's not so much vibration. I also took a light. This is a Lumina 1200. I did have a cheaper light on here, but I decided to take this one instead. It is rechargeable. I tested it out before the trip, and it seems like it works really well. I'm probably gonna get a smaller version as well for the mount on my helmet if I do any kind of night rides. So that was pretty handy, even though I didn't need to use it, but it was nice knowing that it was there. Also on the handlebars, I have a little monitor for my Sony action cam so I can actually see what I'm pointing at. That came in really handy when it's mounted to my helmet and to my chest and obviously to the bike, so I can get some different angles. I did have some other grip gear that I can mount the action cam to different parts of my bike. However, I lost the bag. I had it mounted to the back and it fell off at some point. So I didn't get to use all the different angles that I really wanted to use, but it still worked out pretty well. But this came in handy. Okay, so on the bike itself, I did carry a camera. These two little handlebar bags, these are these Moose Track bags. I have two of them, one on each side. Just some cheap gloves. I carried a Sony a6500 and I actually kept it inside. It was pretty well padded in here. I was kind of surprised. So I just left that thing in there. I just have a kit lens on here. Kept some extra batteries in my backpack, and I'll show you that in a little bit. But the camera was pretty well secure in there. It got banged around a little bit, but this is not my main camera. I know it's an expensive camera, but the padding seemed to hold up pretty well. So I felt pretty safe having it in there. I did pictures with that. On the other side, just had a little rag so I could wipe the sweat off my face whenever I needed to. I also took a Sony RX100, although I probably could have left this behind. Ended up not using it. I could have either taken just this camera or just the a6500, but I probably would have, if I did this again, I'd either only take the Sony RX100 or take the other camera. So, but I ended up taking both of them. But I ended up not using that one. So inside my tank bag here, the top bar bag, this is my rechargeable battery bank, just a 10,000 milliamp battery is inside here. A little light for my tent. I do keep a small light to put inside my tent. I like taking pictures and also like watching movies at the end of the night. And it's nice to have an extra light inside my tent. It's very light. I'm not going to go through that. I might go through that in a different video, but just some extra batteries for different things in here. And that pretty much took up the entire top tube bag that I have there. A couple extra batteries for the RX100. And the same batteries also fit my Sony action cam. This is the Sony FDR X3000 action cam. I guess I should mention that. I do have some little bungees down here. What this actually held on to was I had a drone with me, and I would mount the controller right here with these little bungees, and actually held up pretty well, so I could actually drive it and steer it while I was actually riding the bike. So I could fly it up, and I could actually kind of control it. I could stop, put it where I needed it to be, and then let it go, and it would stay on the bike right here. So that little bungee system actually worked out really well. Let's just go back. I'm gonna talk about the seat for just a second before I talk about anything else. I bought this seat about a year ago. It's just a cheap seat I got off of Amazon. I saw someone else use it. Pretty good reviews. It's definitely the best seat I've ever had. Not the lightest seat, but I never really got sore until the very end of my trip after 3 days. I tell you, the seat is awesome. I'll put a link to this in the description. We'll go to the back rear seat bag next. I do have a little bendy tripod that I use. Left a strap back here. I use this for a couple different things. I did strap it to the action cam a few times, but anytime I did any kind of videos, I also I'll just loosen this up and show you. This actually worked out really well. I had a monopod that I attached to it, and I used this to mount my action cam on so I could film myself taking pictures or whatever else I was going to do. So this worked out pretty well. It would stand up on the ground by itself, and that worked out pretty good. I had this monopole, or this selfie stick, whatever you want to call it, monopole, mounted to the front. I'll show you more about that in a little bit. So I'm just going to put this aside, but this actually worked out really well to film myself. I'll put links to that in the description as well. The rear seat bag, this is I believe, Rhino Walk. Yes, it's a Rhino Walk bag. I believe it's about a 10-liter bag. I have my tent in here and my puffy jacket's also in here. The bag actually held up pretty well. It's the first trip I've took it on, and it's a pretty rugged trail that I was on. So all the stitching held up pretty well, all the welds held up pretty well. The one complaint was probably the straps that actually held to the seat did loosen up over time. However, it was some pretty rocky terrain, so I'm not going to give the bag too many bad remarks over it. It barely came loose. I would just tighten it down every couple miles or so, and mainly it really wasn't that bad. It was just, I felt more secure just cranking down on it. Maybe it's because the back kept compressing, I'm not sure, but I still like the bag. I'm going to keep using it. I'm not going to get rid of it. If I find a better deal on a bigger tank or a bigger seat bag, I may do that, but for the most part, I like it. Let's just show you what's inside. It does roll back. Also has some Velcro to keep everything in. Inside, I kept my puffy jacket. This is just a cheaper but Amazon puffy jacket that I've been using for the last year or so. For my tent, I did use a Zpacks Pleximed tent. First time taking this. And I gotta tell you, I loved it. Did have a small problem with it, but Zpacks has actually fixed the problem. It still held up. It was not a major problem. We'll do a little review on that at some other point, but held up pretty well. Let's go to the front of the bike. So on the front, I do have this little roll bag. I'm not sure what it's actually called, but inside the little roll, before you get into the compression bag, this is where I kept my stakes and the pole for the Pleximed. I did have to buy an actual pole for it because I didn't want to take trekking poles. It does work off of a trekking pole, so I had to buy the little pole. But yeah, stakes and trekking pole. Stakes and the pole for the tent is in there. I did take a small seat. I really want to find out what the seat is. I've had this for a long time. It's only like 10 ounces. I only took this so I could maybe work on the bike if I needed to. However, I didn't have to do anything. I didn't want to be on my knees too much out there. But for the most part, I didn't really need it, but I did take it. I don't always take a chair, but that one right there is actually so light. So up front, this does come with, it does detach. So inside, I just have a lightweight 3-season fleece. I'll put a link to that in the description. It's actually with lighter fleeces I found online. I forget what video I watched when I saw that, but I picked it up. It wasn't that expensive. So inside I also have my sleeping bag. This is an Enlightened Equipment Revelation. I believe it's a 20-degree long and wide. I move around quite a bit when I sleep. This is my second year using this bag. I like it. I will switch to a lighter bag at some point here in the summer, but that's kind of my winter cold weather bag. So that's pretty much it for up front. I did have a little bungee up front. I used that to mount my my drone to it. Let's let it flop around. I just have a DJI Spark. I'm not really worried about it getting beat up. I smashed that thing into trees. I'll show you that in a little bit, but I just strapped it right to the front and it's bouncing around and it held up pretty well. Before I get into my backpack, the center bag is just my tool bag. I may go over that at some other point, but I have a spare tube in there, some extra tools, some chain lube. I also keep a spare tube on the outside of my bike, so I have 2 tubes on that particular trip. It's a very rocky trail, but I didn't have any problems with my tires, so the tires held up pretty well. Let's go over the backpack. Let's go over the water bottles. So the water bottle situation was kind of interesting. When I started the trip, I actually had 2 water bottles underneath my bottom tube. I had a larger bottle right here and a small one down here. This small one was not mounted down below. I broke the cage almost immediately. Cage went flying and I couldn't find the cage, although I did find the water bottle. So I moved the small water bottle up to the top. I took the bigger water bottle out and I put it in my backpack, which I'll show you in a minute. So that trail was on. Didn't really have a whole lot of water on it. There's only one source of water on the entire trail. It's 24 miles long. I was gonna spend 3 days out there. So up front, I have these 2 water bottles. These mounts are from Walmart, believe it or not. And I swapped out the cheap plastic cages for these metal cages, mounted them to the mounts. The mounts are just held on by Velcro and rubber. But I tell you, they don't move. They held up really well, so I was very happy with that. I was kind of surprised that actually worked. I didn't want to carry a lot of weight in my backpack with water because I was going to carry some extra camera gear. Let's move on to the backpack. I do carry a satellite GPS device. This is that Garmin InReach Explorer Plus. Most places I go don't have cell service, so this thing was pretty nice to have. So with that device, I can text my wife, let her know where I'm at. It also shows me, obviously, location and makes me feel a little more secure. In case something happens, I can hit the emergency button. It'll come rescue me. I do carry some bug spray, some extra rope underneath, some extra string. I was really worried about that back seat bag failing on me, so I might have to strap it back up, but so far it held up pretty well. Inside, just because it was going to be kind of cold, I did take a couple pairs of gloves just to sleep in at night, keep my hands warm. Camp gloves, these are just cheap Walmart gloves with some rubber on it so they don't get too dirty. I use them to pick up wood and stuff if I need to. Hand warmers, which you didn't need to use. Maps. I did take a hat just to sleep in. Carry a knife, an extra little flashlight. On the outside, I do carry a little sit pad. And I think you know what this is for. I don't have to explain that. So, a little trowel. On the other side, I ended up carrying the water bottle that fell off the down tube of my bike, which wasn't a big deal. So I carried that on the outside. So I did carry about 3.5 liters of water. Go to the outside over here. It's my water filter kit. I use a C-Knock bag. This is the 2-liter bag, although I may get the 3-liter at some point. That's the dirty bag. I do use the Sawyer Squeeze, the regular size, because the flow rate's better than the mini. I do carry a little crushed bottle just so I can scoop water out of mud puddles if I need to, and I did need to on that trip. And of course a back flush, or whatever you want to call that, plunger to kind of clean out the filter as I go. I do use a mesh bag so everything dries out quickly and doesn't keep getting gunk in there, and that helps out. On the outside of my bag, I do carry my rain gear. I do use a rain cover. I don't always take one, but I did on this trip. Rain pants, my rain jacket, just an extra towel, camp towel. Inside the bag, so I wouldn't normally carry a bag this big for a bike packing trip, but I was carrying a lot of extra gear like the drone and some extra camera stuff. I do carry a bear spray can, and it mounts pretty well on this backpack. This backpack actually is a Exos 48. I'm probably gonna go to a smaller Exos 38. I do like these bags because of the mesh back. Keeps your back nice and dry as much as possible anyway. So all the bike specific bags that I have a couple of them. They sit right on your back and your back just sweats. This is a backpacking bag. It's got this nice mesh back and your back doesn't really sweat nearly as much as a regular bike specific backpack. So I'm gonna go to a smaller version of this, which still has the same suspension on the back. We're gonna switch over that here pretty soon. Inside the bag, I have a little Zpacks chest bag. This is just what I mount, or what I carry my extra camera equipment in. Batteries, some extra lenses, more batteries. So the drone is just a DJI Spark. I kept the batteries mounted in the side of my bags, my handlebar bags here. So not to carry an extra bag for batteries, but just took a little DJI Spark. This thing does only shoot 30 frames a second. Although I filmed everything else in 24, I did have to convert it to 24, which didn't look too bad. It worked. But this thing is like a little tank. I mean, you can just beat the crap out of it. That's why I like it. I'm not gonna get anything any bigger than that. And I did use the controller on the trip. May change that in the future, don't know yet. I do have a little bag just for toilet paper, some soap, some medicine, my toothbrush, stuff like that. Don't need to go through all that. My chest mount for my action cam. My clothing bag, just some extra clothes. I think there's just an extra shirt in there, I believe. And some long pants so I can sleep in. So in here I just have my little safety kit, my fire starting kit, a little knife, a couple other things are in here. It's not just a safety kit, it's a little bigger than normal. Food bag, just a Zpacks food bag. Still some stuff left over because I was planning to stay an extra day, or plan to stay an extra day if I needed to. So there's still some stuff in there. So I got my sleeping pad. This is the Neo Air X Lite. This is the extra wide 24 or 25 inch version. I move around quite a bit, especially in the wintertime. I wanted to be nice and comfortable. I do have the new Uber Lite version as well. I may try that in the summertime, but I didn't use it on this trip. So one thing I did forget is I did take a small pump, mounts on the side, with some duct tape attached to it. Okay, so what would I do differently next time? One thing I did not do before I left was check my front shocks, check the air pressure. These things do leak a little bit, and they were a little bit low. So over the course of the trail, I think it went down even more. But they've been like that since day one, so I may swap those out for different forks at some point before I do another big trail like that. I don't know. I may get a bigger seat bag in the back. This is just a 10 liter. I may go to a 14 liter so I can get a little bit more clothes in there so I don't have to put them all in my backpack. I may take less lenses next time. Maybe only go just one kit lens on the camera itself. Get rid of the RX 100, not even take that at all. That might be about the only changes I really make. And the water situation may be different on different trails that I'm on. The trail that I took, there was really only one water source in the entire trail, so I had to carry in more water than normal. So that may change a little bit. But overall, I really like the bike. Pretty happy with it. Pretty happy with everything I took with me. A little heavy, but it all worked out. And so if you have any questions or comments, please ask them in the comment section. I'll definitely answer them as best as I can. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.